welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, produced in partnership with the A.B. Korkor Foundation for Mental Health. I'm Terry, the creator and co-host of this podcast. I've lived with depression most of my life, and I know how easy it can be to feel all alone in the experience. I'm not alone, and you aren't either.
And I'm Dr. Anita Sands, a licensed clinical psychologist with a number of my own diagnoses, all of which bring a certain amount of anxiety and depression along with them. There is great power in shared experiences. We share our own as we engage in intimate and candid conversations with our weekly guests, exploring different perspectives on and experiences with depression.
We keep it real because depression is real. We keep it hopeful because there truly is hope, in spite of what depression tells you. Hello, Anita.
Hi, Terry. You know, we consider all the stories shared on our podcast to be intimate. Our guests describe details of their mental health journeys, their self-care routines, their fears, their challenges, and their personal triumphs. And each week, in an effort to connect with you, our listeners, they disclose how they experience depression, what they wish other people understood about the illness, and whatever other details that they choose to share to normalize the discussions around mental illness and to reduce not just ignorance and discrimination, but isolation.
Sometimes they talk about their suicide attempts or suicide losses, experiences we'll be discussing more in September, which is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Today you'll hear a rare conversation which offers a backstage pass to not just one person's experience, but a peek into a marriage and how the couple works together to manage and survive life with a mental health disorder.
Rebecca Lombardo, a guest from about 5 years ago, reached out to us recently saying she'd like to update our listeners on her life and mental health journey. She recently turned 50, an age that frankly she never expected to live to see. We'll be sharing that episode next week. But first, we wanted to reintroduce Becca, who lives with bipolar disorder type 2, or what used to be called manic depression, and Joe, who is both her husband and her primary support.
In this gem from our archive, the couple, then 17 years into their marriage, shared some of the things they had learned about managing and surviving a mental health condition as a team. They wanted to be on our podcast, they said, because they didn't want anyone new to the experience to have to reinvent the wheel. If their insights and advice could help smooth the journey even a bit. So here again are the Lombardos with their story of struggle and communication and most obviously enviable love and support. Joe admits that in the very early days, Becca's mental health struggles were cause for pause.
We actually had a bit of a false start when we first met, and that was
a hurdle.
Yeah, and that was me, and that was, my fear and ignorance of not understanding what she was going through.
But Joe says when apart, he couldn't stop thinking about her, and about 2 years later, they reconnected.
So I pursued it, and I didn't let her bipolar disorder, her depression stand in the way of things. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew that when we started dating. I knew that the day I married her. Everybody asked me about it when I married her. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? Do you realize what she goes through? And I didn't care about any of that because I knew how wonderful of a person that she was. And 16 plus years after the fact, I love her more than I did the day I married her. And I loved her a pretty good amount the day I married her.
Joe gets what everybody who struggles with a mental health diagnosis knows.
And that's the thing that I learned with this beautiful woman sitting right next to me early on, is that there was so much more to her than her illnesses. She's beautiful. She's funny as hell. And she cracks me up at least once a day with some of the off-the-wall stuff that she says or does.
And beyond that, he witnesses and values Becca's fortitude.
Rebecca is so much stronger of a person, number one, than I am, and number two, than most people that I have ever met. And she does it in spite of what she goes through on a daily basis.
Yeah, I honestly had no choice in the matter,
Yeah.
You find out that you're bipolar and you think just taking a few pills and it's going to be fine. And, over the years, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So, yeah, there's no choice in the matter. You got to man up.
Yeah. I mean, she's stronger than anybody I've ever met.
When Becca says it got worse, she is not exaggerating. About 12 years into their obviously special marriage,
it's not been easy, and especially in 2013, things got pretty hard. I have a loving spouse, and I couldn't complain really about my life, but something inside of me wasn't happy, wasn't doing okay. It started to build up and build up and build up, and just a lot of different situations compounded the whole thing, and I decided that I was going to try and take my life, and I did attempt. I ended up in the hospital on suicide watch, and then they came to me and said the state is having you committed because of what you did. So, we're sending you to this place, and it was just horrible. It was the most godforsaken place.
Joe describes the experience as being as dire for his wife as her attempt on her life was.
It was chaos, not even controlled chaos, just straight up chaos. Yeah. It was easily just as traumatic as what she had gone through prior to that.
The worst part about that whole thing was when they brought me there and strapped down on a stretcher, Hannibal Lecter style, and they bring me in, and we get to the doors, and the lady that works in there is like, no, he can't come in. So I had to say goodbye to Joe right then and there, not knowing when I would ever see him again, and that was the most difficult.
That was pretty upsetting.
Yeah, it really was.
For both of us, because it kind of caught us both off guard.
So we'll leave it at that, but you get the idea. So today, as they offer advice, recognize that it comes from a place of knowing, really knowing how dark and hopeless things can get.
Well, I found that the most important thing when I'm struggling is, as hard as it is to communicate, especially with Joe, because he's the one that's got to live with me, and I don't ever want it to seem as if my mood, I'm taking it out on him. So the first thing I do is say, hey, look, I'm not doing good. I'm not having a good day. And he knows what that means now. But for anyone who is just sort of beginning that type of journey, you may have to explain there's something going on with me and I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. I'm just really, really depressed or really sad or exhausted or whatever the case may be. And
the thing is too, is you developed into that, early on, it was, I don't feel good. I've got this, and it was, trying to explain away what you were going through. And I think it's a matter of just, self-awareness and self-growth that you were finally like, no, you know what, I'm having a bad day and it's because of my condition and I need to let you know.
And here's a bit of insider information that nearly every person we have talked to about their depression has said.
Really important thing for people to know and remember if they have someone in their lives that deals with depression or is struggling, I can just about guarantee you that person doesn't want you to fix what's happening in their life. They just need you to hear them out or, be supportive, and say, when you finally feel better, I'll be here.
That was something that I had to learn. I don't want to say I learned it the hard way, but it took the first couple of years of our marriage. It took me acknowledging she doesn't need me to fix this for her. She just needs me to be there through it. Yes. And so I stopped trying to find the answers to quote unquote fix what was wrong with her.
Because
there's nothing wrong whatsoever with my wife. She just has an illness. And it's a matter of, living with it and accommodating for it and, helping out wherever I can.
So when Becca lets him know she's having a bad day, instead of fixing it or disputing, ignoring, or putting her down like some people experience, Joe asks,
is there anything I can do or say that would make it better, you know? And sometimes there is, and she'll tell me, and then sometimes there isn't.
Most of the times there isn't anything, but the fact that he's said that is enough to lift my spirits a little bit, you know? So, yeah, it's very comforting.
And there are times, of course, it doesn't go perfectly smoothly, because these are real people, and this is real life. But even then, their communication and respect are so obvious as to be palpable.
You know, eventually I figured out, well, no, this isn't anything I did or didn't do. And once in a while it is. Once in a while, I'm human, I make mistakes, and I'll do something that's upsetting to her, you know, and if I do, I apologize, you know, and I try and fix it. But, you know, really it's a matter of being able to stop and say, well, no, she's going through something right now. And even if she's taking it out of me or yelling at me or whatever, it's not anything that I did, you know. So if I get angry at this situation, all it's going to do is make it worse, you know.
Right.
And that respect and understanding go both ways.
There have been times where Rebecca's blown up at me and then realized after the fact that she's done so, and she's apologized to me, you know, and that means a lot to me as well, you know.
I wrote an article about how important it is for those of us with these different conditions to support and be there for your caregiver, whoever that may be, you know, because sometimes it's a thankless job putting up with me, you know, and I know a lot of people that are like me. So
to that point, Joe reminds that healthy boundaries are part of any healthy relationship.
You know, when Beck messages me at work, she understands that I'm at work and that there are times that I can't talk for, you know, whatever reason that because I'm working, you know, and so she gets that. And she'll, you know, sometimes when she messages me that she has a bad day, she says, you know, look, you don't have to call me back or anything, just letting you know. And then it's on me whether or not I can call back right then and there, or if I can call her back down the road or text her back or what have you.
You're probably noting a theme here. Communication is key.
You know, it's just really important that you're always, even through your own pain, you have to be sensitive about what other people are going through. I think that if more people were sensitive to those types of things, that we wouldn't get as many messages about, hey, I can't stand my husband right now. You know, he's always depressed. He won't get help, And I think that if you just were more understanding and more open with the communication, that you probably wouldn't be sitting there saying, I can't stand my husband right now.
Becca and Joe get those comments on social media. They're kind of rock stars on Twitter with the popular hashtag #KeepTalkingMH, MH being mental health. Becca has also put together a collection of her blogs in a book, which we'll link to. But after talking with them, we wish they would co-author a manual of do's and don'ts when in a relationship with someone who goes through hard times. And of course, that doesn't just have to be limited to mental health. It could be chronic pain or any other number of life's challenges. Because some of the things a life of struggle teaches you are resilience, empathy, and perspective.
Yeah, it's a little bit of being able to walk in another person's shoes. I think we as a society needs to learn to do that a little bit more. You know, it comes down to being able to be there for people and help people. You know, not just the people that suffer from mental illness, but people in general. You know, you see all these anti-bullying campaigns and whatnot all over the place, but it still happens, and people still get bullied. And why is that? You know, so yeah, if we actually took a minute and actually tried to show compassion to everybody and understanding, I think things would be a lot better all the way around.
What an amazing relationship, Terry. There's so much caring and empathy and like a willingness to try to understand the other and care for the other, again, to the best of their ability. And I really love that they talked about how they've sort of developed their shorthand communication with each other. You know, in the autistic community, they often recommend that you have index cards or things on your phone that you can just show your partner when you can't put the words together and you can't express them. Things like, I'm not okay right now. I could really use a hug. I need 15 minutes of alone time to pull myself together. I feel like they discovered this in their own relationship about how we need to know what to do and when to do it. And we can't always put that into longhand form. So I love that shorthand communication that they came up with.
Absolutely. And when Joe asked, is there anything I can do or anything I can say? That's such a simple statement. And it leaves the door open to kind of anything, to those things you just said. It might be 15 minutes alone. It might be a hug. It might be something huge. You don't know, but to just put it out there. And even if you say no, to have been asked would make a world of difference.
Yes. Oh, it's so caring and so respectful. And I love that. And I also am just in awe that Joe was able to put into words and express that there is nothing wrong with Becca.
Yes.
Love that. And
yes.
And his discovery, and need to remind himself frequently that he didn't cause her depression and he doesn't need to fix it. Just really, really important things in a relationship to remember.
And I appreciate very much that Becca also turned and said, I need to appreciate the caretaker, and I need to acknowledge that it's a weight. I was trying to avoid saying the word burden because I don't think it's that, but I think it's a weight and it's a responsibility. And when somebody is living with that, I think it's great to have it acknowledged. I know this can be hard. I know I can be hard. And I really appreciate you being here for me. And, in my best times or even in my okay times, I will do my very best to be here for you as well. So I learned a lot from them.
Yeah, I really love this notion that what's the best that I can do as your partner right now? And that's going to shift and change along that continuum from day to day and, where you are in a particular depressive episode. And I also really love that if we keep it as a continuum and not a binary, an either or, then your being here, even depressed or non-functional, is still of value to your partner. You're being there. This is why we want to try to take suicide off the table, because you're being there, even if you really are at the lower end of that continuum in terms of what you feel you can offer, that is still of value to your partner.
That I'm flashing back to a recent episode we did with Sebastian Slovin about his father's suicide, where he said, there is value in you just being here breathing.
Yes.
And I remember that really resonating with me as well.
Yeah.
Also want to say the Lombardos celebrated their 22nd wedding anniversary just yesterday. And it's nice to hear they're still going strong. And we'll hear more about that next week because, as we said in the introduction, Becca has reached out to talk about the huge difference in her life and her bipolar disorder management and mental health journey in general between when she was 40 and now that she's 50. And it's a good one. So tune back in next week.
We truly hope that our podcast brings a little more understanding, helps you better articulate and reflect on your own experience with depression, or better understand how to support someone else who is struggling.
If this episode has been of comfort or value to you, know that there are hundreds of others like it in our archive, which you can easily find at our website, givingvoicetodepression.com. And remember, if you're struggling, speak up, even if it's hard. If someone else is struggling, take the time to listen.